computer because I'm not rich and pay for Zoom. How the hell are you guys? This is Real Men Talk Shit, and we have Frank with us again, the mental health comedian, one of the best people in the world doing these podcasts right now. We have some huge announcements, and we have a very, very special show for you guys this week because it is one of the hardest days that I used to deal with as a kid. And we have good news, bad news, some bad stories, maybe some good stories that Frank has to throw in. And as you guys can see, I don't know how much better it looks, but I have a new camera. I don't know if it's going to stay or not because I don't know how well it looks yet until I'm done editing. But it's better than, let's see. Let's see if I can just be obnoxious and change it back and forth. It's better than this one.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
This is my MacBook standard webcam, and this is the new one that I just got for Christmas.
Yeah, the MacBook, for all of its wonderful features, the camera is not the top of the list.
It's supposed to be 720, and it's absolutely not. It's at least 540.
Yeah. No, this looks much sharper.
Yeah, I thought it looked much better. So obviously, normally I have ads. Normally I have all that stuff. I did not want to put that stuff on this episode. I felt like this needed to be a standalone episode for itself. So I did not want to put any ads on it because this is a much more emotional kind of episode. It's going to be even more deeper than what we had last week. And I kind of wanted to go into that stuff. But I do want to announce something for you guys. There is a Gleam link down in the description below. Holy glare. Fuck you, ring light. We have a gaming mouse and keyboard giveaway. Amazon was super, super kind and sent me 2 of them because somebody stole one, and then I got another one for free.
Oh, nice.
So this is going to be given away to one of you guys. It is the same mouse and keyboard that is right in front of me, actually. So you guys are able to win this with the Gleam link down below. There will be a click-through for you guys to follow the Facebook page, and I believe the podcast link, possibly, depending on if I have to pay for that shit, because, you know, we're cheap here and we don't pay for that shit. So make sure to follow the Facebook page and like the Facebook page, and you will be entered to win a gaming keyboard, which nobody wants to pay for. So who doesn't like free stuff? It is December, and I felt like that was super, super special. Also, merch. Real Men Talk Shit. We have merch now. I have a hoodie behind me in case I get cold. That's also the same exact logo. There's also a bunch of other stuff on there. And I didn't even set this up or anything like that. But came out super, super awesome. I'm going to be changing the company I go through. I went through, I think, Spreadshirt for this one. But they ended up screwing up and sending me like 5 packages worth of merch. And I don't want that to end up screwing up my income from it. So as of right now, it's set up as a nonprofit. If you guys want something from it, feel free to buy something. I'm not making a single dime off of it. It is completely nonprofit. Mainly because I didn't like that they sent me 5 packages of something without telling me, hey, we're going to send you all the stuff that we printed instead of just the stuff that you ordered. Didn't make any sense to me. And the last thing I need is for them to be like, well, somebody ordered 1 shirt and we printed out 5, so we're going to charge you for all the ones that we printed.
Oh!
Yeah, I think I got 2 of these shirts, 2 gray shirts, 2 gray hoodies, and 2 red hoodies.
Wow.
And I paid for 1 of each.
You have the magic touch, man, when it comes to getting extra swag.
Yeah, the sizing is a little bit smaller, so if you're a larger person, make sure to order like a size bigger than what you are normally.
Okay.
Just that way, in case anybody has Spreadshirt or, yeah, Spreadshirt. In case anybody has Spreadshirt or anything like that, make sure to order a size bigger because they are a little bit tight, a little bit snug. If you like that fit, just get your normal one. But on some of them, they are a little bit smaller than what you would expect. And there was a third thing. I don't remember. I guess I'm just dumbfounded and absolutely horrible at this.
Yeah, there was the merch for sale.
Merch, giveaway. Oh, I want to thank everybody because they are starting to share the show. We are breaking our records, at least so far. So we have been killing it. We got 500 views in 2 days on an episode, an hour-long episode. You don't expect 500 views in 2 days, at least not me when I'm as small as I am. So I do want to thank all of you for coming and hanging out. That's why we have a giveaway, because I want to get back to you guys and say thank you. So definitely. So how the hell have you been, Frank? Now that I've talked for 10 minutes about absolutely
That's right.
nothing.
Thanks everybody for dropping by. That's our show. I'm good. Actually, I got an invitation from a website called elevate.ac. Elevate.ac. It's in England. And it's kind of a masterclass.com site where they have these really, they got an astronaut and a tech wizard and a movie producer, an NBA retired basketball player, and me. I said to the guy, we're Zooming. Are you sure you got the right Zoom, man? I'm not. I really don't. Well, you know what? I thanked him in a DM for letting me play along. And he said, Frank, I could write a long reply as to why we're delighted to have you, but just suffice to say that we think your information, suicide prevention, will be the most important information on the site. Damn.
Definitely is.
I suspect Zach, maybe he's got a mental health history, or maybe there's something, somebody close to him has had issues. I wasn't expecting,
That was the other thing. There will be a donation link down below for either mental health awareness, to write love on our arms, or the gaming mental health one that's going around. Whatever one actually has a donation link instead of me sending you to their page, as well as the suicide prevention hotline, because I feel that's important. No matter how many times people post it, it is still important to post every single chance you possibly get. And make sure to ask for help if you guys need it, whether you message somebody or call somebody or talk to them. Say whatever you got to say and kind of have that conversation to help yourself and try and feel a little bit better about what's going on, because the world is shit.
Or if you want to text the word help to 741-741.
Or text Frank, because he'll sit there and talk to you all day long.
That's true. I will. I'll pop another tab and we'll have a chat.
Exactly. He loved it. He loved coming on so much last time. He decided to come on again. I gave him this idea about a month and a half ago, and we both forgot so hard that I messaged him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we're doing that at 2, right?"
Oh right, yeah. Well, you messaged me this morning and said 8:30. Yeah. I thought you meant Pacific. You meant 11:30 Eastern. Yeah. No, 11:30 Pacific, I guess. Because I was freaking out. I'm at the grocery store. I'm like, now?
Hey, last one you did in your car with your dogs hanging out behind you.
Yeah, and it would have been with my dogs hanging out behind me this time if it had been 8:30 this morning. I had them in the car.
If it would have been 8:30 this morning, I wouldn't have been able to have this conversation and help all the people that hopefully we're going to help here at some point.
True.
So, obviously, many people struggle with mental illness. Many people struggle with a lot of the shit that's going on. So I felt like it was important for me not only to have Frank on for this, because he has done the same thing I'm doing right now and kind of explaining my story and what I dealt with and extreme mental health problems in this situation. But I also wanted to go through why I was dealing with all these problems and why I kind of wanted to go through and kill myself at some point, and why I struggled so hardly with it. And I feel like this not only is not a unique story, but it's probably a story many other people feel the same exact way about. And maybe it'll help them not feel so alone. Because when you have these such strong feelings at the age of 4 and 5, there's major problems there. And hopefully somebody can get some help, and not me.
Did you have these feelings at 4?
Yes, that's when they started. So we'll get into the story now.
My best friend, actually, in North Carolina, attempted at 4, 8, and 12.
Okay, so when it all started, I was 4 in 1997. Well, I was just getting ready to turn 4, and my sister was born. I was born in 1994. My sister was born in 1997. She was a twin, and the twin passed away. So start off, death. And we ended up moving shortly after that, and we moved into about a 3 or 4 story house. It depends on how you count them, if you count the basement or you count the attic, or if you don't count those. A tall colonial kind of house that looks like it was built in the 1700s, just so that way everybody kind of has a general idea of what I'm talking about. One of those big, tall, Gothic kind of houses. And shortly after we moved, I saw my grandparents on a daily basis. Like, I lived with my grandparents, essentially. And I would go back to my parents every now and then for school and all that kind of stuff. I even started school late because of all this stuff that was going on. And then my grandmother passed away. So I stopped going to my grandparents as much. And then I have that passing as well. And then I watched my mom go down a very, very dark hole to the point where she doesn't get out of bed for a month. She just lays in bed. And my stepdad's around, but he didn't live with us. It just was kind of every now and then she would take care of the baby. She was up, she was doing stuff and kind of interacting, and then kind of went to bed, which a lot of death going on. That's your mom and your kid within, I think, 6 months. So it was super hard on all of us. And I started having reoccurring nightmares every single night of watching my grandmother pass away because I was there when she passed away. Well, she left in the ambulance and died in the ambulance going over to the hospital. So at that point, I was having these reoccurring nightmares of a tornado sucking up my grandma and spinning around because I watched Twister way too many times because, everything happens for a reason, right? You just got to watch the horror movie as a 4-year-old. Called it the Flying Dodge movie because, that's the only thing that was important in that movie to me was the tornadoes and the 1998 Dodge Ram. Thriller, not a horror movie.
Yeah.
What's funny is it's the same truck that my grandpa had, except he had it in black. Same exact truck. So I'm sure that kind of just connected, and I saw a black truck that got sucked up because I already saw it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was always going down this road that I never went on. It was one of the roads in my town that I just never saw. So I kind of just made it up as I went. Like I saw it go in between the two mountains, and then after that, I had no idea what the hell was down there. So I just made it up as I went. And I slowly started having this inclination or this want to just roll out the window. Now, at this point, my parents didn't have a lot of money. So I had like a box spring and 2 mattresses stacked on top of each other. So my mattress was about even with a 3-story window. And all I wanted to do, and I'm deathly afraid of heights now, I don't know if I was then, was to just roll out of it and whatever happened, happened. At 4 years old and 5 years old, because I lived there for about 8 months. I just wanted to roll. And it was the weird, like as an adult thinking back, how wasn't this scene? I just wanted to roll out the window. So as it progressed, the nightmares continued, and it didn't really hit me, the mental health again, until my teenage years. I got hit really, really bad when those two situations happened right close to each other, and there kind of wasn't that support system there. And that probably progressed us quite a bit. So when a friend would come over, they would always ask what the shelf is on the wall. And there was always a shelf on the wall of my brother's things on the shelf, like a teddy bear, a book of his pictures of before he passed away or after he passed away, however the hell that went, because in the grand scheme of things, you never get a true story out of somebody in this situation. So it was just continually, every single person I had over would ask, what is that? And it got made really, really worse when my littlest sister started, well, who was born after the passing of both of them, would continually ask and feel horrible about the passing of them. It's like, and she's special needs, which in the grand scheme of things, you probably wouldn't explain it to this child because kid's special needs. She doesn't need that mental anguish on her. She doesn't need that kind of problems going on in her mind and stuff. You don't want that. So between that and this kind of like ritual that happened every December 14th, my mom would post on her Facebook or her MySpace a song Happy Birthday to somebody in heaven, or like weird little rhyming songs and stuff like that. And always would wonder like how he would be and stuff like that. And it just slowly started to tick away at me and just slowly started to eat away at how I felt. And it was just that whole, why wasn't it me? And I felt this when I was little too, was just continually wondering, why wasn't it me who died when he could have lived and did all the things that you wanted? Like I could have went and hung out with my grandma, and you could have had your son that you want all these things for. And it just tore me up and tore me up and tore me up. And 13 years ago today, actually, probably about 16 hours ago, 13 years, I struggled really, really hard. And I was just sitting in my room listening to Eminem. And I was one of those kids who just kind of stuck to himself after everything happened. I was kind of very, very rather withdrawn from a lot of things. I just played video games, stuck to myself, and kind of did whatever I felt. And, had a bunch of Zach's alone time that nobody respected. Everybody just wanted to push through the doors and kind of, that's what happens when you have parents who don't buy you actual doors and just have those like magnetic closure ones.
Yeah.
Parents, don't do that to your teenage son. Don't get magnetic closure doors. Get them a real door with a lock on it. It's very, very mean if you don't. Sorry about making light. It's so hard to deal with all this shit.
No.
So I was listening to Eminem's Curtain Call CD, and I don't know if you're apt to this or anybody's apt to this, but there's a song called When I'm Gone, and it talks about him passing away and how he's always there watching over his kids and stuff like that. And it just had that feeling like this is a different time I'm listening to it, man. Just it's hitting different. It feels different. And like I don't know how to describe it because like I always listened to Eminem. I was always dealing with the problems that I was dealing with as a kid. And like I was listening to it, cleaning out my closet and all the super, super angry music that I actually enjoyed compared to other angry music like screaming and stuff like that. But it just super weird. And as the day progressed, I walked into my sister's room, whose birthday it was, and I apologized. And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know how to feel or what to say. Like, I'm sorry." I gave her a hug and walked out. And everybody went to sleep. And I got this knife set for Christmas the year before because it wouldn't have been Christmas yet. And it was like 6 or 7 knives in a package, like that you would normally give to a teenage guy. There was like a pocket Swiss Army knife. There was a pocket knife that was about this long. And then there was like little smaller knives and like knives with the pliers in there and, all the normal stuff that you would get to somebody who's learning how to fix things. Go ahead. You look like you were going to ask a question.
Oh, no.
Oh, I apologize for the baby. She's super happy right now. So,
Hey, she's breathing. That's all I care about.
I hope that I'm coming through clearly. That's all that's.
Oh, yeah.
But so I sit down and I start listening to some heavier music and I just start cutting my wrist.
Oh.
And as soon as I saw blood, I looked down and I was like, this ain't it. This isn't it. Like, I can't do this right now. And it was the weirdest feeling of like, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. You shouldn't be doing this right now. So I put on a hoodie that I always had on. So it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I ran to the closet. At the end of the closet, at the end of the hallway, there was this closet that had no doors on it. And because my mom was a nurse, she kind of had it overfilled with like medical supplies and all that stuff. And I had a cut from about here to about here. So like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was bad. And I ran down and grabbed an ace bandage. Like, I kind of have a general idea how to fix things. Compression.
Yeah.
Wrap it up, get it dealt with, get it fixed. I wrapped my arm up. And this got to the point where I was like, this is to the point where I have a tattoo for my brother. Passed away.
Was that one of the twins?
Yeah. I wanted it to be Tommy Pickles from the Rugrats with a Yankees hat on and kind of just symbolism of like my childhood and my brother who passed away and stuff like that. Not only is it a shit tattoo, now it's like the feeling of that problem and that situation still rides. And this is what I wanted to say was Now I'm getting the tattoo covered up because it feels 10 times better. It's so weird when you finally understand that when death happens and when you look back at it, you tend to feel better after time. And when it's not shoved in your face consistently and when it's not shoved in front of you like you should feel bad, you tend to feel better. And it's so weird because I felt that the death was so centric to my parents' life that me and my sisters didn't matter
Mm.
because every thought was, well, Brett would be doing this, Brett would be doing that, Brett would be doing this, he would be this old today. That my sister went by the wayside. Me and my other sister went even farther. And it kind of rotated back and forth of that whole feeling of like, I'm not worthy. I'm not, I shouldn't be here right now because he's not. And now I'm living with 3 kids, and it's just like, if I can't add to this world and kind of make other people feel better, then what am I doing? Because I dealt with that struggle and I dealt with that pain. And if I can add to somebody's story and they can hear this story and it helps them, then why am I holding it back? Because regardless if it hurts me, this might be the last knife that I feel. Now I'm able to get it out, and now I'm able to get past all this shit, and now I'm able to feel a little better about myself because in the grand scheme of things, I tore myself up about it for the longest fucking time. I still felt like that a couple years ago of just feeling like, how many more times am I going to feel like the one that shouldn't have been here? And it's such a surreal feeling, just feeling like you're the kid who is the kid that filled the void because one passed away. It's just so surreal.
So when you cut yourself and you wrapped with the ace bandage, did you ever get medical attention?
I did not. I wrapped it in an ace bandage for the first couple of days, and then I took it off and I wrapped it with gauze because I don't remember how we got the gauze, but there was a roll of gauze that was like the little 1 inch roll. I
Yeah.
used up the entire roll and wrapped up my wrist, and it kind of got enough compression on it to where it closed up. And then the healing process took about like 6 months or so, and it kind of just slowly progressed and progressed to the point where I was wearing hoodies every single day, all day, regardless if it was 90-degree weather or not. It was I'm wearing a hoodie regardless if I'm wearing shorts, and that just became my thing of comfort. Now I don't have scarring, but then I did, and it's just such a surreal thing because everybody around me, my cousin, a lot of my friends at that point in time, cut themselves. So I was like, this will help me numb that pain, and I feel like, go ahead.
Non-lethal self-harm with your cousins, or
Yes,
okay.
it seemed like it was very precise and very enclosed, and didn't make any sense. It was more or less, don't want to even say that. It was more or less just trying to feel something, I would assume, but I don't
Yeah.
know. And it's weird because you don't really hear that story of that kind of enlightenment of like, I need to stop this now. I don't need to continue doing this. And it's just so surreal and so weird looking back at what I wouldn't have. Like, I wouldn't have that crying past my
Yeah.
TV right now. I wouldn't have the 2 kids upstairs or my beautiful wife. And it's just, it's so surreal feeling like you could lose out on everything because of a decision you made at 13.
Yeah. Well, and I have a friend, Robert, who did something very similar, same cut and same reaction, looking at it thinking, I got to stop this. And then went to seek medical attention. And although he went to the hospital, the emergency room, and he was honest about what he'd done, and they, and they bought him a 3-day involuntary detention order, but he's still around. So, yeah, it same basic feelings like, wait, this is no, I need to stop this now. And
Yeah,
ran to seek help.
she just stopped whining. I unmuted. She starts whining again.
Of course she does. She knows.
It happened throughout the last episode too, and I apologize for it then too, and I apologize for it now.
No,
But
no, she had a rough start, and
yeah,
the fact that she's breathing on her own, and we know this because she's making noise, that's fine.
well, it's so surreal because my sister was in the NICU too, so like all those feelings came back
Oh,
when we had her go in the NICU, and it's just like looking back at it, it was like I cannot deal with this the same way that my parents did, regardless
yeah.
of the outcome. I can't deal with this the same way. So I was like, I'm gonna put my head down. I'm going to, because my wife was having medical issues as well. It was just, we need to get this done. It doesn't matter how I'm dealing with anything right now. It doesn't matter how I'm doing. I'm going to get you out of the NICU, and I'm going to make sure my wife's okay. I'm going to make sure the situation's done and dealt with correctly. And uh, I look back at it as an adult and look back at both situations, and I'm like, you just wish that people would handle situations the proper way. You just wish that there was that positivity in some people's eyes of like, hey, you're dealing with a shitty situation. There's a baby who passed, but at the same time, you have a kid at home and a kid in the NICU, and there's no time to sit here and mourn to the point where you're in bed for a month. There's no time to mourn and you're in bed for a year. You still have to be a functioning person of society, and it's just so weird looking back at it as an adult and trying to make sense of it all.
You think she was clinically mentally ill?
Definitely. Since then, she's been found to, but this was a little forced. She was found to be agoraphobic, which is being afraid of leaving your house,
Right.
but she was able to go spend money. And then she's also has other mental health issues that I don't know very much about, but it's just weird looking back at it because it's like you want the best for people. You want the absolute best for people. And looking back at it as an adult, that's not what was given. It's not what when you have a child who ends up with a tattoo on their arm at 16 commemorating the child that you had that passed away when he was born. There was no connection there. Obviously you didn't do things correctly.
Right. Well, do you think she did the best she could?
I don't know. I don't know how I personally would do. That's the hardest part about all this. You know what I'm saying? It's like I don't know if I would do a better job. I don't know if I would do a worse job. I don't know if I could even do as well in that situation, even dealing with all the stuff that I dealt with. Like, how do you genuinely deal with that properly? Do you close yourself off and kind of deal with the situation yourself and kind of keep it away from the children, or do you leave it open and cut yourself essentially more and deal with it openly towards everybody and have that conversation openly with everybody? It's just a weird thing of looking at it and saying, hey, which way is the proper way to deal with it? Because I don't think there's a catch-all.
I think I think if the family could have grieved together. Oh, and my dad passed away at 40, suddenly of a heart attack. My mother, uh, we didn't go to the funeral. She thought it would be better if we remembered him alive. But I think that was a mistake. And nobody mentioned him for another 4 years until I mentioned him 4 years later. So it was like he's there one day, gone the next, and we never grieved as a family. And I have some work to do. One of my co-authors is a therapist. Said, "Look, Frank, you never dealt with those feelings. You and your family didn't grieve together. You need to see somebody who specializes in grief counseling and work your way through that. It's not going to cure your depression, but it may, may lighten your load a little bit to deal with those emotions." But my mother thought that was the thing to do. She did the best she could, and I'm sure if she could do it again, she probably would have us all grieve as a family. And now I had some mental issues following that in the 4 years that followed because of my father's passing. I didn't know that until I was 18. I was talking to a friend of mine. I was majoring in psychology, and I was describing my symptoms. He goes, "Dear God, did your family grieve together? Did you did you go to father's funeral? Did you get closure?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, no." He goes, "Well, that's classic, man. Those are classic symptoms." So, yeah, but I think
It's
my mom did the best she could.
Yeah, it's super weird because I went to my brother's funeral and I thought it was like a party. At least that's what I was told. I don't really have the memory of what happened. I have the memory of my grandmother passing because it was super, super traumatic. Like I can lay out that entire time. I can
Yeah,
lay out that entire day, even though I was 3 years old, 4 years old. And, and it's just like, in the grand scheme of things, there was such a disconnect from everybody because there wasn't time spent. So at the same time, it's such a catch-all. You know what I'm saying? It's like, do you deal with it by yourself and kind of just continue on with life, which I think might be the right thing to do because there's not that connection.
right.
Like, is there a physiological or mental connection in between my sister and her twin? Possibly.
Mhm.
Who the hell knows? Because in the grand scheme of things, if you don't mention that child and that child passes away at birth, does that child who's still alive have recognition of somebody who was there but she never met? I don't know.
I would suspect you should work through it as a family. Otherwise, kids, as you did, work through it as best you could with kid logic. And, you felt like that your parents' world revolved around the child that wasn't there, that your twin sister was a twin with like a second class citizen, and you and your other sister were like third class citizens. Because what would Brett be doing now? How old would he be now? Yeah. I think if I could wish for you, I would wish you to go back and have the family get therapy as a family.
Well,
Me too. I
yeah.
wish I could sit down with my mom, my sister, and grieve my father's passing.
And like you can definitely tell that there's absolutely no correct answer because each individual person deals with things differently. Each individual child in that situation would deal with it differently as well. It's so super interesting to like think back as an adult and try and put the pieces together and make some sort of sense because you're an adult now and you can finally see it with open eyes. Like how many of my kids would I want to have a tattoo of a kid that wasn't around them or a person that wasn't around them? I wouldn't want them to glorify or negate those feelings for anybody. Like just leave it alone. Like it's not for you to deal with or stress over because you didn't have that connection. You had that connection for the couple months you knew that your mom was pregnant. Like I wouldn't want my kids feeling those feelings or feeling that exaggerated way. It's so surreal, like in all honesty.
Well, but sounds like to me you had survivor's guilt because you thought, why wasn't I the one that went, and then they could have the child that they want,
Yeah.
doing all these things that they want the child to be doing. So
Like originally it was just that feeling of wondering why it wasn't me, which
yeah,
normal basic survivor's guilt.
yeah.
And then as we got older, it was just always, well, they would be this old. They would be doing this. They would be doing that. Like I can understand as a parent wanting those things for that child, but I wouldn't be saying them out loud, I don't think.
Not in front of the other kids. But
Like that
again,
that's where it seems muddy, you know what I'm saying? Like I could see where that could help some children. Like I genuinely do. But I also see where that can genuinely hurt children a lot.
yeah, and I guess my question again is, do you think your folks did the best they could, knowing what they knew at the time?
I don't know.
I just wonder if they couldn't have done any better because they didn't know any better. It's not something you prepare for.
Well, definitely, especially when you have a broken family to begin with. You
Yeah,
have one kid living with your grandparents and you're traveling back and forth, well, their grandparents, and you're traveling back and forth to the NICU to go see the one child that's still hanging on. Like, I don't know if I'm just more of a positive person now, but it's just like you would I don't know if you would say you would hope or you would want people to look at it in a more positive light of, hey, you still have two kids to take care of and make sure everything's as good as you possibly can. You can't just say, okay, now I'm done. And that's the weirdest catch-all of all of it. Especially being a parent now, it's just like that's not where you go. You don't just sit there and And you don't sit there and just walk away and say, hey, I can't do anymore. And if you do, you go more drastic than just not putting in the effort.
Yeah, but you're holding her and you're holding her to your standards,
Yeah,
what
no.
you would do, and she, you know, my friend who attempted at 4 and 8 and 12. His family was the old school. You know, we are good parents because you never go hungry. You always have clean clothes. You know, you're getting a good education, and that baseline was what they believed was being a good parent. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough for my friend. And ironically, if they had not lied to him about Santa Claus, if he had known from age 4 that it was his folks that were giving him those gifts, he believes he would have understood that they did love him and that was evidence of that love. And he feels like he would be much healthier mentally now had he known that those, that Christmas was actually provided by his folks and they did care a great deal about him.
Yeah.
So,
Like, I think many people would genuinely understand that in that situation where you don't have that feeling of love and care, that if there's any resemblance of loving and caring and, hey, we're going to make sure you're okay. We're going to do all this stuff for you. And it's not just the background stuff of making sure you're fed and you go to sleep and you have school clothes. It's the extra stuff of, hey, is your homework done? Did you have any questions? Did you have any problems? Oh, you got a splinter in your hand. Hey, you want to go spend some time together? It's just such a different level of trying to make sure that you're the best parent you possibly can be. And there's so many different levels to it because genuinely each kid is so different. And who the hell knows how that kid's going to react when they're an adult and stuff like that. Like it's just so surreal.
well, do you think you're a better parent because of the way you were raised?
I'm a better parent because I don't want my kids to see the things that I saw.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was asking.
Like I don't want them to have their electric shut off. I don't want them to have to move houses every 6 months to a year.
Oh,
Like
really?
like you don't want those things for your kids.
No.
You don't want to have them wonder why we're having casserole for the fifth day in a row because we bought noodles and cream of mushroom soup when you could have put together something much better that more than one person wants to eat.
Yeah, but it seems to me, just from a little I know about your mother, that may have been all she could possibly do. Sounds like she was struggling mightily with, well,
Oh,
just getting out of bed.
definitely. And it progressively got worse. And there was times where it was a lot better. But it's weird when you think about it and you're like going through the thoughts of it and and it goes normal food, normal food, normal food, and then you have casserole for a week and a half, and the only person that eats it's my mom, and sometimes my sister. Like I don't want to sound ungrateful, and I think it kind of comes off that way, but there was some hard fucking times.
Yeah, well, the electricity being shut off every so often, having to move every so often would be horrible for a child.
Yeah, there was this one time that I thought she was going to attempt. This was shortly after my attempt. The electric got shut off, and it got a limiter put on it to the point where like we could have the fridge running, and like one other thing. So no lights, no nothing. That's how bad the limiter was. So like the water heater could run if somebody needed to take a shower, somebody was doing dishes, that would work on the fridge. And she called my cousin over and she's like, "Go take them out, get them something to eat." I don't know why you rely on a cousin to do this, but whatever. Um, Go get them something to eat, bring them back in a little bit, and I'll have dinner ready. My house was always open and kind of everybody kind of congregated there, and it was always 7, 8 people there, and my family was of six. So my girlfriend, who's now my wife, was over all the time. We would have my cousin over, some of her friends. Like it was always a full house and kind of odd. And this time, she had me and my one sister go out with my cousin, and we went and got some pizza. and I just couldn't eat. Something didn't feel right. Like, I don't know if it was just because I was super, super negative because of what I was dealing with. I'm still dealing with all the mental health problems of dealing with my attempt and stuff like that, or what. You know, and my cousin called me out. It's the same cousin that had problems. And she asked me, she's like, "What's wrong?" I, I looked her straight in the face. I said, "I think my mom's going to attempt." And I don't think that me sitting here away from my house is going to aid that situation. Like, she's going to need help because that's who I was. Like, my mom was my best friend. So, like, in a lot of situations, it was like I wanted to help my mom. I wanted to make sure that she was as put together as she possibly could be because she needs to be, because I need her in my life. Like, that's how I felt as a teenager and as a kid.
Sure.
So we go back and the power's out. I'm like, what what the fuck is going on? And we come into her bawling her eyes out. I'm like, don't fucking tell me I was right.
Hmm.
Don't tell me right now because this just doesn't need to go this way. Like, it just doesn't. I can't do this right now. And she's like, the power got shut off. I went to cook a pot of rice on the stove, and I put a vegetable in the microwave. And between the microwave, the stove, and the refrigerator, it tripped the breaker. All the power went off, and it wouldn't turn back on.
Whoa.
This was the middle of the winter, and we live in upstate New York.
Yike.
Yeah. So it was bundle up with blankets. You just had a slice of pizza. It's time to go to bed because there's nothing you can do about it at 7 o'clock at night.
No.
So yeah, there was a lot of times where I thought that that was a chance.
Did anybody ever find out you attempted?
I don't know.
Was
I
that your
know.
only attempt?
Yeah, that was my only attempt other than wanting to roll out of the window.
Yeah.
I've had those feelings since, but after a little bit, you kind of get more level headed. You get that kind of, hey, I'm needed, whether it's needed for myself or needed for my kids or my wife. You slowly start to level out what you're feeling, and instead of saying, hey, I'm just going to walk through traffic and whatever happens happens, you start to kind of level out that feeling of just not giving a fuck.
Yeah. I'd give a fuck, but I'm all out. As
It's
my
so
sister.
weird. It's so weird trying to describe that to somebody. It's like, I don't want to actively kill myself, but if I walk in the middle of traffic and something happens, it happened.
Yeah. Passive suicidality.
Like, what what more else is there a way to say that to anybody? It's like, in the grand scheme of things, if something happens, something happens. You can't control it. I can't control it. It is what it is.
Yeah, you wouldn't actively attempt, but kids oftentimes, especially ones from abuse homes, where you'll hear them say, when I was a kid, I used to pray every night that I didn't wake up. I would never kill myself, but if I hadn't woken up, I wouldn't, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
It was weird because I was never religious, but it was kind of pushed towards me. So you know that prayer of like, I pray the Lord my soul to take, and then I would stop at that sentence for like 2 years. It was like the year that I wanted to roll out of the window, and then the year afterwards when I was dealing with some problems with my father, and it was just such a weird kind of like
If I
almost.
die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take.
It's just like, okay, you guys are giving me the finality here. Like, thinking back as an adult, it's like, hey, there's my finality. It's, you guys are telling me the Lord's here. You guys are telling me God's here. Why isn't he taking it? Like, I know that's a fucked up thought to have, even as a child, but it's still it's so surreal thinking back as an adult now.
Well, look at the nursery rhymes. The what's the one in the tree? If the bough breaks,
The
the baby
cradle will fall.
cradle fall. Yeah, down will come cradle baby and all. I mean, looking back as adults, I'm like, dear God,
Isn't
why?
Isn't
Repeat.
all around the mulberry bush, ashes we all burned down? Wasn't that a nursery rhyme written by the Jews in the concentration camps?
I think it was the plague. I think it was prior to that. I think it was during.
I was just saying, like, wasn't it one of those things where it's like super, super morbid? Why? Why?
Yes, it was. I think it had to do with the Black Plague or one of the plagues, and yeah, the people put the flowers in their clothing as some kind of to ward off the germs, but of course it.
Have you
Like,
ever seen one of the masks from the Black Plague?
but the
Yeah, that they
yeah,
used to stuff herbs in so that way they didn't have to breathe the dirty air.
yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of morbidity, morbid. Like I said, if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. Hold on, is this possible? Am I gonna?
Why are we telling kids to say this?
Yeah. What is there a chance I'm gonna die? Is there something I don't know?
Like, what are the percentages here? Are we talking 5 to 10%, or are we talking 100%? Like, what the
Yeah,
fuck, man?
good. I swear. I'll.
It's weird
Yeah.
because that completely distanced me from religion. Like, I was questioning as a child then, like this just doesn't make sense. And then as a teenager, it got farther and farther. And now I'm like, none of this shit makes sense.
No, it makes
It,
absolutely no sense.
it's all completely everything in the world reacts based on what you do and what they do. There would be no correlation. So how are we going to describe it, saying that it's a mystical spaghetti monster in the sky, saying that a mystical spaghetti monster is the one who's saying who's doing each individual thing?
Yeah, Seth Godin said it's religion is a placebo. I mean, placebos work if you believe deeply enough in the placebo. It's a placebo religion, but for people who truly, deeply believe, it can do great things,
Well,
as most placebos can.
I think there's a saying about faith that's saying that faith is one of the best gifts that can be given because you can ask something of somebody that doesn't exist and it will magically happen.
Yeah, which makes no sense to me. But
Doesn't make any damn sense to me either. It's just like you can will things to happen. You can, regardless of, as long as it's not super super out there or super crazy, you can will things to happen if you take the steps to do them.
yeah,
I can't I can't pray that this podcast explodes with only recording one episode. I can pray this podcast explodes based off of how hard I work, how hard I put the algorithm in, and how hard I sit there and make sure I get the best guests I possibly can,
yeah.
and try and open myself up the best I possibly can so that way people can understand who I am.
Which may be why the Lord said, "The Lord helps those who help themselves." Maybe He's hedging His bets a bit. Look, if you help yourself,
You didn't roll out the window at 4. Like, come on, my guy.
yeah, yeah, that's quite the story, Zach. I'm sorry you had to go through all that.
You can't change it.
Yeah, and maybe make a better parent because you did. You never wanted any of that for your kids.
It was weird because all those negative feelings made me want to have somebody that I knew would love me.
Hmm.
So instead of looking at girlfriends when I was 14, 15, and 16, I looked at people that I could marry. I found an amazing wife, had a kid at 16.
Whoa. Well, and I
Like,
have a friend from college who's, I think, had a similar situation, not with the mental illness, but I think she felt like that her folks favored the other kids. And so she wanted somebody who would just love her.
yeah,
She got married straight out of college, and it didn't last long, but that's why she told me that. That's why she got married. She said, want somebody who would just love her.
like it's been 11 years that me and my wife have been together. Almost 12 in August. And I'm being corrected from past the TV.
I heard that. The 12. Uh,
It's just, it's super super crazy when you actually genuinely look at these things, especially as an adult, and kind of go through it with more of a fine-tooth comb instead of looking at it as a child as you were in these situations. And then you're like, hey, I did that because I wanted somebody who cared. I did that because I wanted somebody who was going to love me. I did that because I didn't feel it. I did it because I was struggling extremely bad and needed help. And I hope if any of our kids deal with that problem, that we're more adept at dealing with it because we struggled in those situations.
Oh yeah, I would imagine you are.
I think that's genuinely the only way to look at it because in the grand scheme of things, I can sit here my entire life and say, "Hey, I dealt with all this crazy shit, and why am I here?" Or I can say, I dealt with all this crazy shit, and now I'm a parent of three, and hopefully at some point I have a voice that will genuinely help people, and hopefully this episode will at least touch somebody and kind of make them feel like they're not alone and they have somebody there that genuinely understands what they're dealing with. And hopefully at some point I'll bring the light to the world that I thought I wouldn't be able to.
Oh, well, it is your blessing and your curse, as it is mine. It's my curse and my gift to give back, to explain what I went through in hopes that other people will see themselves in my story and realize they're not alone. That a lot of other people go through that.
I'm very good at copying you, Frank. I apologize.
Yeah. We just have similar missions, Zach. That's all.
And we repeat almost the same words. It's really kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, we speak the same language. We hear the same music,
Exactly. Well, that's why I thought you were such a good person to have on because it's like I could have my wife on and we could sit here and bullshit. And I could sit here and go as in depth as I possibly could. Or I could have somebody who's completely disconnected from the situation and will sit here and question things and kind of ask the same questions that the audience would because they're not a part of it. You know what I'm saying? And
No, that's good. As you said, that's good radio. It's if you are asking the question that's in the listener's mind, that's a good podcast. If they're thinking, I wonder what, and the host goes or co-host goes, hey, I wonder what, that's good podcasting.
yeah, having my wife on and her hearing the same story that she's heard four times with maybe one extra detail or something, like my shirt was red or orange, like she's going to be like, yeah, I've heard this before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done this. I've heard this story. I've been around it. I understand where you're coming from. People are only going to want to hear that so many times. People are only going to want to not have their question asked, and they're like, ah, there it is, so many times.
Yeah. I had a conversation with my wife recently. She had a very rough upbringing as well. She was physically, emotionally, and sexually abused by her father, passive mother. She was run away and in juvenile hall and a foster kid and, drugs and so forth. And she said to me the other morning, you're the only person who's ever loved me unconditionally. And that was such a foreign idea to me because even though my dad died very young, my mother was a great parent and her family was, her extended family was very loving. And so everybody loved me, but I knew loved me unconditionally. It was just to have somebody who had just exactly the opposite experience.
Yeah.
There's only one person ever who just loved her unconditionally. I thought it was like a cold slap in the face to me that sort of thing could happen because it was so foreign to my upbringing. So I was flattered, but and I didn't realize, I didn't set out to love her unconditionally. Just love her unconditionally. Just
Yeah, exactly. It happens. And it's so weird because a few years ago, we disconnected from my parents completely. And I came out and said, hey, this is what I dealt with. You're sitting here saying that I'm lying, so I'm going to sit here and say my story. And people didn't like that. People, yeah. So I saw my huge family. My mom has 12 brothers and sisters, and it gets really really confusing because I am a a grandson to my grandfather twice, once through marriage and once through his son.
Oh,
So as I say it, I am Pornhub's number one category. I am a step incest baby, and
wow.
and I went from having 13 aunts and uncles minus my mom, so 12, to having one that will just openly communicate and be there, and kind of took that role as my mom for a while. And it was just so weird because it's like my family was super super inclusive, super caring, and everything else. And then as soon as you say something and they don't understand it or saw it and didn't want anything to be said, they sit there and just pull away.
Or they saw it differently. And my sister taught memoir at Duke. And she'd have a student come in and say, I shared my manuscript with my sister, my memoir. And my sister said, that's not the way it happened. That's not true. And, you know, same family, same house, same parents. And she goes, I'm worried. I'm not sure I want to publish the memoir. And my sister said, here's the deal. Same kid, same house, same family, different stories. Tell your sister next time you see her, if she has a different story, I'm quoting my sister now, tell her to write her own fucking memoir, because this is the way you remember it. So it's not uncommon.
Yeah. And like, and it's one thing for people to come out and be like, hey, that's not what happened. And I expected that. I also expected people to, at least one or two people, to completely understand where I'm coming from because they were around and kind of interactive and stuff like that. And then you have the people that completely weren't there that are just going to bitch and complain because they like to bitch and complain. And that's kind of what I expected.
But
And every single person except one said, fuck you, Zach. We don't give a fuck. You're a piece of shit for saying anything publicly. Well, sorry, not saying anything publicly didn't get very far.
yes,
Not flipping the bird and saying fuck you didn't do very much. And
yeah.
it's just like, how much do you sit there and let people step on your foot before you say, what more can I do? Why is it wrong for me to say what I dealt with? Why is it wrong for you to say what you dealt with? Why is it wrong for anybody to genuinely say what they're dealing with, what they're struggling with, or what they're doing?
Yeah, I've got a friend who she wants to write a book, I guess another horrible upbringing. And wants to do it. She did a TED talk and she wants to do another one about her upbringing. The strict German parents, not a lot of love, very difficult childhood. And I said, well, why don't you do the TED talk? Why don't you write the book? She goes, well, my parents are still alive. It'll crush them. I'm like, fuck them. That's,
The only thing that stops me is lawsuits.
I mean, they're not, you're not now have a great relationship now. You know, they're not treating you any better than they did when you were a child. I mean, how much worse could it get? But, everybody comes to that in their own time.
Definitely. And it's just like the only way to feel cathartic. So, yeah, I can't speak properly right now.
Catharsis, cathartic.
Yeah, the only way to feel a little bit better is just to say it. If you don't say it and try and deal with the problem, then what are you doing?
Yeah, agreed. But, she's waiting for him to die so she can do the TED talk, write the book. But, no, I
It's
wouldn't wait.
okay. A TED talk is just me and you talking. Like I promise you, nobody else will see it.
Yeah, that's, nobody on YouTube will ever watch it.
It's okay. That first 20 minutes, I'm gonna chop up and say, "Look, Frank signed off," and send it away.
Yeah, fine.
I'll just be like, "Here, guys, look, Frank said it's good."
Well, Zach, I'm glad you're still here. I'm glad the attempt didn't work. I assume I asked you if you attempted more than once, and you said no. So I'm assuming, other than just the occasional thought, there had never been another serious thought about ending your life.
No, it seems to have gotten quite a bit better. I do have those quick thoughts of like, hey, just don't give a fuck at the precise moment.
Yeah,
But
or I could just kill myself.
yeah,
Yeah. I could do A, B, or C. I could just kill myself.
exactly.
And it's somebody asked me, when's the last time you thought about suicide? I said, what time is it? Like, what? I go, you know, it pops in my head all the time. You know, it just depends on
Three
the
Tuesdays away from last week.
yeah. How do you deal with that? I've been dealing with it for decades. It's not a big deal.
That's all you got to do is just catch somebody off guard. Nobody knows how to deal with a problem until you're genuinely just saying, "Hey, yeah, it was this day at this time. I stopped giving a fuck and I walked into traffic, walking over to Walmart, and whatever happened happened."
Yeah. Well, and
Either
that's very chronic suicidality. You're driving down the road, you look up ahead, there's a bridge above it. And you think to yourself, if I just turn the wheel a little bit, that would be that.
so
And most people who have chronic suicidality have had that very experience. Oh my God.
I
I
used to have
did.
panic attacks going across bridges and everything else.
Really?
Yeah. I extremely dislike bridges, but I don't have panic attacks going across them. I had a stronger grip on my wife's hand going to give birth to our first daughter that she was having extreme not mental, health problems with because her fallopian tube burst. I was squeezing her hand harder than she was squeezing mine when she was going into sepsis because we were going across the bridge.
Oh my God.
So,
Okay, Zach, you're officially weird. I'm weird, but you, my friends,
hey, it's okay. I'm fucking weird. I'll brand myself as fucking weird. It is what it is. Make sure to go follow the Facebook page for a nice gaming mouse and keyboard. Hopefully, whoever the hell wins it decides to click on the link and actually answer my message back. That will be shipped. I believe it ends on my birthday, which I thought was kind of cool. So you have the most negative part of my life the day I attempted it's starting, and it's ending on the day that I was born.
oh,
So
nice.
I thought that was kind of like nice little parody of it because if I wasn't here I wouldn't have been able to attempt, and kind of just adds a circle to it.
That is true.
Thank you, Frank, for coming on again. It's
Oh
been a
yeah.
blast.
Well,
Maybe one of these times I won't get scheduled as a get to know you thing, and then I'll end up having to pay you, and I'll feel horrible. You're a great fucking dude, and make sure to go check out Frank. He's one of the best people if you guys have a podcast or anything like that. I'm sure he'll come on and talk some shit. So, as always, thank you. I think real shit's been talked, and there is no sponsors. Make sure to go check out the merch, check out the giveaway, and come hang out, guys.